Hello, and welcome to the fourth episode of the Captain's Lifestyle Podcast. I'm your host, Captain Morgan. We have another special guest on today's show. He has a Bachelor's of Secondary English Education that he used to teach English at the biggest high school in Indiana, where he was also a volleyball coach. He then went on to get his doctorate of chiropractic, and he now practices chiropractic care in Dana Point, California at Nexus Family Chiropractic. And he started doing CrossFit before it was cool, so well before I even knew what CrossFit was. And he also embodies the Captain's Lifestyle to a T. Please welcome Dr. Daniel Kimbley. And we'll, thank you, yes. All right, welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thanks for having
on the
me.
show, of course. So, let's give the folks a little background about yourself.
Yeah, so you covered part of it. Started off from Indiana, Indianapolis, Indiana, or just west of there, small suburb. Started teaching high school English in December of 2008. And from there, just kind of grew obsessed with like helping students. I always knew I wanted to help people, and that was just kind of the calling for me, was to teach high school English. And so as I started teaching, learned more about the brain, and it was kind of just the more I opened my eyes and realized what it actually takes to help somebody and make someone successful, I grew more obsessed with the brain and the human body and lifestyle, and then my lifestyle started to change, and then I started helping change other students' lifestyles and ended up here in Dana Point. So,
Sweet.
Yeah.
You want to talk a little bit more about what you noticed in the school system and why you wanted to kind of make a switch towards traditional teaching to what you did, because I've heard that story before.
Yeah, for sure. So going back to undergrad, one of the things I was afforded the opportunity to do a lot of research on what they call a hidden curriculum. So hidden curriculum is like, just to put it simply, you have two curriculums. So I could be teaching you English, but I'm also teaching another set of skills at the same time. And those skills, whether the teacher knows that they're doing them or not, are either teaching kids how to memorize and learn that there's one right or wrong answer and how to follow someone else's directions, or to actually think critically for yourself and come up with own solutions to your own problems, so you're not dependent on someone else for the right or wrong answer. And so as I started learning about and doing this research in these schools, one of the things that I found is that schools, in my opinion, and from what the research shows, schools are really setting kids up to do one of two things. Or the main thing is following their parents' footsteps. So if your parent's a janitor, it's likely you're going to be going to a school where they're teaching you skills at the level of a janitor, and they're doing it through the curriculum. On the other hand, if you have parents who are like in the profession that I'm in now as a chiropractor and a business owner, teaching much more of like critical thinking, outside the box thinking, how do you create value in a number of different ways to ultimately make money and then help lots of people as well. So two very different things. And one of the things that I realized early on is like, I was raised in a school where I was taught to, my goal and my ambition at life at the time when I was in high school was to be the assistant manager at the oil change shop that I worked at. And so my dad,
Ambitious.
So my dad made me go to college. And as soon as I learned this and started researching it, it really changed my mind. And I'm like, I want to make an impact, because if I know that this hidden curriculum exists, then I can make a difference in a huge school like I taught in, that being a super inner city school, and really helping kids who, unbeknownst to them and even some of the teachers, they were being taught skills that were limiting their success.
Awesome. So you finished teaching. What prompted the transition from Indiana to California?
Love this question. So long story, I'll try to keep it short. The gist of it is this. So as I started teaching, one of the things I realized is like, yes, the hidden curriculum existed, as I just talked about. I was doing my best to mitigate the effects of it. So every year I'd have new kids come to me, and when I'd have those students in my classroom, they struggled with this concept of, I'm not going to give you the right answers. You have to figure those answers out on your own. Mm-hmm. And so I started just doing some preliminary research on like, well, why is this the case? Or like, why do we have kids who really struggle with learning and struggle with things in school that other kids don't. And one of the things that I found is that kids who are under a lot of stress when they're younger, actually you can have done these studies. They take brain scans or fMRIs of these kids who have lots of stress when they're younger versus kids who don't, and their brain scans literally look differently. And so from that, what I started realizing is that the frontal part of their brain, the part that's responsible for all of these skills that we consider successful, that all the people the Captain's Lifestyle talks about, is like grit, willpower, curiosity, being able to be motivated towards goal-oriented tasks and stay that way, all come from the frontal part of the brain that's shut off in these kids with chronic stress. And so the kids weren't bad kids because they were bad kids. They were bad because they were under all this stress. I started learning about chiropractic care simultaneously and realizing that the adjustments that I now get to perform on people are actually stimulate that part of the brain and turn it on like a light switch to allow kids a greater amount of success. And so what I started realizing is my teaching strategies were great. And I asked the question, what if I could adjust them? And ultimately, every time I came back to, I wish I could just give this care that I was under to my students. And so I had to get my doctorate from that.
And where did you get your doctorate?
Yeah, so I went to Marietta, Georgia, which is Life University is the name of the school, biggest chiropractic school in the world. I would also argue best chiropractic school in the world. I actually just did an interview with them today to help tell their story a little bit better and get the message out to more people, which was cool. So we made the transition, and it's interesting just to add another piece of it when we talk about success and what really drives someone to be their best or express their best self. Heather and Heather's my wife. We literally had everything that you're told you're supposed to have. Both college degrees. She had a physical therapy degree. I had a high school English teaching degree. I was the AVID coordinator at the school I was at. I was coaching volleyball, doing really well. They wanted me to teach other teachers what I was doing in the classroom. And we had a house with a white picket fence, and still there was something that was missing from both of us. And we couldn't really explain what it was. And so we decided that if that's what we were told we were supposed to have in life and we still weren't happy, there had to be something more. Yep. And we gave it all up to go to Georgia.
Awesome. So then what prompted the move to California? Why not stay in Georgia?
Pretty quickly after moving to Georgia, we realized there's no chance we're going back to Indiana. We didn't like the winters. We love the summertime. So we're both super water people, and wakeboarding, water skiing, kneeboarding, all of that. We kind of grew up doing it. So as soon as we moved, we realized that we're not stuck where our families are stuck.
Yep.
Where would we go? And so we had two options. It was either Florida, because we wanted summer and water year round. And it was either Florida or Southern California, and Florida was not an option for us really. So Southern California, we traveled the coast twice, fell in love here in Dana Point, and here we will be forever, just over a year in practice. So
yeah, I think you made the right decision.
Yeah.
Florida's a little bit too humid for me. I don't know about you, but I would prefer Southern California any day. Mm-hmm. Okay, so I've been adjusted by you for over a year now, and your technique is a little bit different than what I always thought chiropractic care was. I got adjusted one other time, and it was what I thought it was, a bunch of cracking and twisting and pulling, all that stuff. Can you talk a little bit about your technique that you use and why it's different and why you choose that technique over the conventional chiropractic?
Yeah, for sure. So prefacing all of this with, I'm going to say a bunch of techniques and name some stuff that doesn't necessarily really matter to anyone other than if you're a chiropractor. And even then it may not really matter that much. So prefacing all of this with all the chiropractic techniques work. It's the application of and being able to do a really thorough analysis to see what each person needs in time, I think is the magic sauce to it. So, my technique is different. Through school, I was very dogmatic. I wanted to do the popping, twisting, cracking. I thought that was the only way to go. That's how I got adjusted by my chiropractor when I learned about it. And as I started adjusting people, I realized, especially as I started taking care of more of the public, that people were scared of it because they didn't really understand what it was. And so as we started to learn more through school, I realized that, there are other techniques that are much more lighter force. So I started using some of those just with students, literally that I was in school with. And what I found is those people were coming back to me saying hey, whatever you did, that wasn't the way we're normally adjusted. Can you just do that again? Cause I felt amazing all week. And I'm man, there must really be something to this. And so as I got in practice and I started doing more of it, I just saw, drastic results. So the technique I use is called corn specific technique. All corn specific technique is, or KST is what I'll call it from here on out, is it's an analysis to figure out what each person's body needs at the time that we're adjusting them to get a lasting change in the nervous system. And so all of that is from the premise of the body knows how to heal itself. Like none of us ever got scrapes on our knees and we had to wake up the next morning and remind ourselves as we walked out the door, like, oh, I need to make sure I heal that today. Our body just does it on its own through our nervous system. And your nervous system, if you don't have a nervous system, you don't have life. So if you optimize it, then you should be able to express life at 100% versus 75% or 80% or whatever it may be for whatever age you are.
Awesome. So throughout the year plus that I've been going to, what kind of changes did you see that I made? Because we'll talk about this next, but I didn't really come for a specific like injury. Mm-hmm. So can you talk a little bit about
I think so interestingly, like you had the aches and pains, right?
Yeah.
And I see this not just with you, but all of our CrossFitters, and not just CrossFitters, but I mean, people who could be literally 80 years old. But just your body moving better when you're on the table. So a lot of my assessment is looking at how your body moves as an entire unit together, right? So not just looking at how your ankles move or how your knees move or how your hips move, but how much, I'll use the word flow, your body has throughout the entire system when I'm trying to adjust you. And so over time, what we see is way more flow. But the cool part is we can also measure this with a thing I use, which is called thermography. And so thermography measures, it takes temperature of the skin at the level of the spine, all the way from the bottom of the spine up to the upper neck. And so what that thermography is telling us is how well your autonomic nervous system is functioning. And what we know about the autonomic nervous system is there's two branches. There's the sympathetic, or the fight or flight, and then there's the parasympathetic, which is the rest and digest. So your body can't be in both modes at the same time. So if you're in fight or flight mode, you're not resting and digesting, you're not healing. And if you want to talk about the physiology of this, we can. I'm totally cool to go there, but I won't go there right now. And so looking at your scans, we literally took your body from being stuck in a little bit of stress mode. You took care of yourself already, so it wasn't as bad as some people, into a place of more ease, of more of that parasympathetic state. So your body was like literally healing better, recovering better after workouts. I think you were sleeping better almost immediately
for sure.
when we measured it. So those are just a few of the things. And then still, I think too, as like aches and pains came up, you kind of realize that, the more and the better self-care I have, the faster I'm going to be back in the gym the next time around.
Yeah, that was huge. So we can go down this rabbit hole a little bit. You talked about fight or flight and rest and digest. Let's see, where should we go with this? I've heard a lot of people talk about breath work, like when you just finish your workout and you go to eat something that your body might not be able to process, like all the nutrients, because you're still in that fight or flight. And in order to get in the rest and digest, you have to get back to that state. Mm-hmm. You can go wherever you want with it, but you want to talk a little bit about the difference between fight or flight and rest and digest, and which is good when?
Yeah, so you have three types of stresses. So when I'm saying stress, I'm talking about the sympathetic nervous system, but I'm just going to say stress because it's way easier to comprehend. So anytime you're in stress mode, your body does a couple things. It dumps catecholamines from your kidneys, which are just your stress hormones. So there's cortisol, there's epinephrine, and then there's norepinephrine or noradrenaline, however you want to say it. So those chemicals do a couple of things. They do some very interesting things. So that front part of the brain that I talked about with those kids on the MRI scans,
yep.
Cortisol actually shuts off the prefrontal cortex, which is the front part of the brain that's responsible for not only turning off your sympathetic nervous system, but also giving you this ability to think rationally through things, to be motivated towards goal-oriented tasks, etc. Cortisol also shuts off the action of testosterone and growth hormone. So if we look at it from an athlete and recovery perspective, then anytime we have cortisol floating around in our bloodstream, which we do need some, but if it's chronic or stuck on, then we have an issue. We're literally not building up new muscle the way that we could, and we're not regenerating ourselves after the punishment of workout. So what we see with a lot of athletes who like eat healthy, who stretch, who do all the mobility things, and they would generally, like, you look at them and think that they're healthy, they're missing this core component of having healthy nervous system, making sure that their stress response or that sympathetic nervous system is in check by adjustments of the spine. That's where I come in, to turn off that cortisol or that stress response so that the body can go into healing mode and actually recover at a higher level. And that's where we get people who are consistently, I think you probably experienced this at the beginning of care, if you think about it, just hitting PR after PR after PR pretty quickly after being under care. And
True.
it's not magic. It's literally because your body is just optimized on every level when we address that stress response.
Yeah, I remember that month, actually. I hit by far the most PRs that I've ever had, which was amazing. So we're talking a lot about athletes and chiropractic care. So I started going, because I didn't have an injury, I just knew all the benefits. So you want to talk a little bit about how you can benefit, how chiropractic care can benefit someone even if they don't have a back injury, which is what most people associate with chiropractors.
Yeah, for sure. So I actually don't I can help people with injuries. Obviously I've helped tons of people with injuries, so that's not an issue. I always tell people that getting people out of pain is actually the easy part. And then there's all this other cool stuff that happens after they get out of pain. And so here's kind of how, here's where I come in, and what I'm super passionate about is what I find is that, especially in the athletic world, we're always told that good diet and lots of exercise. So if we look good, then we're healthy. And if we feel good, we're healthy. And my question to that has always been, I always use Patrick Swayze as the example. Patrick Swayze ripped six-pack, looked amazing, and then passes away of pancreatic cancer at 50 years old. So my question is was he really healthy? My answer would obviously be no to that. Yep. And my question and my follow-up question to it would be, how well was his nervous system functioning? Because the nervous system modulates the immune system. And if that's the case, then we should have been able to keep those cancer cells in check. So back to your question is how do we help people without pain? When we adjust the spine and we find these stress responses that are stuck on that I can turn off, and then your body does the rest of the work, we're literally, every adjustment, stimulating the part of the brain that's going to give people more motivation, more presence, more productivity, and ultimately I like to boil it down to profit. And so when I say profit, it could certainly mean money. We take care of some very, very high level business owners who do millions and millions a year inside of their businesses, who come in and they're I can literally focus longer, make better decisions inside of my business, and the care that I'm under makes me more money. On the flip side of that, maybe you're not a high level business owner, but we also have moms who are just stay at home moms who are after being adjusted here, I can just be present with my kids and not worry about all the noise of the outside world.
That's awesome.
And there are a host of others, so we take care of kiddos with autism, and those kids who come in and they have very rough days at school and can't stay focused and can't make eye contact. They start making eye contact with mom and dad. Wow. And it's these little changes, and it all has to do with how the prefrontal cortex processes information and ultimately creates a new, more productive human being in every aspect.
That's awesome. I can't imagine the feeling of, well, I guess I can because I'm a coach and seeing coaching people hit a PR, but you're changing their lives in a different sense. And that just seems like an amazing feeling to me, being able to help people on that level. So you want to talk about one of your favorite success stories that you've experienced?
Yeah, so many of them. Do you want athlete specific or
wherever you want with it? We could go one of each, athlete specific and then non-athlete.
For sure. Okay, so athlete specific I've seen this twice now, and it blows my mind every time. So 2 different athletes, one coming in with no complaints, one with a low back issue. And so she starts coming in, she's getting adjusted, and she's just kind of yeah, I don't really know. I just want my low back pain to go away. No big deal. Not really any other goals other than that. So we start adjusting her, and pretty quickly, I think it was the first month, she comes back in, and she's like, dude, I got strict pull-ups for the first time in my life. She's like, wow. I don't even know how that's possible. In addition to the low back pain going away. And then adding on to that, having the presence and clarity and feeling safe enough to go after and actually pursue a totally new job and profession. So all of these things kind of linked up is I see it, and obviously we can measure it with the scans that I talked about with you, is when we start adjusting the spine, we stimulate the brain. It allows people this new level of clarity, this new level of consciousness that literally changes who they are as human beings. So strict pull-ups, PR. New job, paying more money, PR. So when I talk about presence, productivity, profit, more productive in the gym, more present with a husband, and then obviously like profiting both in the business world and on the other side in the gym world as well and setting PR. So
sweet.
Super cool.
Non-athlete specific.
Yeah. So non-athlete, I'm going to go the opposite. So we had a 2-month-old little boy coming in. So I've adjusted kids as young as 10 days old.
Wow. And
so people always have the question, this is why I love the light force technique. There's no popping, cracking with anyone that I adjust now, including these little 10-day-old, 2-month-olds. So 2-month-old baby comes in and doctors told mom he's healthy, right? But she knew that he wasn't because he wasn't breastfeeding. He wasn't sleeping. He wasn't necessarily pooping really well. And he was just like a fussy kid. And if you've ever seen a newborn baby, you know they sleep a ton. Yeah. They literally like eat, sleep, poop, pee, and breathe. That's all little newborns do. So she brings him in and she's like, I can't get him to sleep. He won't breastfeed. And it's too late now for her to even try breastfeeding because all of her milk's dried up. But she's looking for an answer for her kid because her pediatrician's telling her like, yeah, he'll just grow out of it. So I started adjusting him, and 2 weeks into it, she's like, he's a different kid. He's now making eye contact with me. He's sleeping like 4 hours at a time. And she's like, literally, not only have you given me his life back, but like I have my sanity back because I was going crazy thinking something was wrong with my kid and nobody could give me an answer. The other cool part of this is we had the privilege to continue to take care of him. So it's been 2 months now. He was behind on his developmental milestones. He's all caught up on them, which is for brain development, that's huge. Kids should always be hitting their developmental milestones. If they're not, there's something wrong. And then the other cool part about it is to see a kid who was once fussy when I would put my hands on him, and if mom held him, no matter what, he was crying, to a kid who's now laughing and giggling and playing with toys and like finding his mouth and reaching for things at 4 months old. Is like we, in my humble opinion, took a kid who would have been diagnosed one day with either autism, ADHD, ADD, some learning disability. We brought him completely back the other way. So he's going to be a happy, healthy kiddo into his adulthood for sure.
That's so awesome. Wow. That's just amazing. You like literally changed his life.
Yeah.
And like you don't know what he would have been, but I mean, it sounds like it was for the better. You want to talk a little bit about the gun thing, right? Because I have a Theragun, right? Like the massage gun thing. And in your office, you have something that looks similar, but it probably does something completely different. So you want to talk about what you use that for? Yeah.
So the tool I use is called an arthrostim. It's exclusively reserved for use by licensed chiropractors. And so the idea of the arthrostim is that arthro means joint in Latin, all right, and stem means stimulation. So we're looking at stimulation of the joints of the spine through vibration. And the reason that the arthrostim matters is, one, in my opinion, because it's the most specific that you could be to a joint. So where you're going like pinpoint, my fingertip versus a pinpoint is a little bit more specific. So all of this matters because every time we're adjusting joints of the spine, in the 80s, a guy named Roger Sperry found that 80 to 90% of the stimulation and nutrition to the brain comes from properly moving joints of the spine. And I'm adding in the word properly. He just says movement of the joints of the spine, but properly is key in there because if the joints don't move properly, your body has a stress response. Yeah. And we talked about a little bit of that physiology. So the arthrostim's magical because it puts in a vibration that's faster than 0.2 of a millisecond, which the Theragun does as well, but we're not addressing muscles. What we're actually addressing is the joint capsule, and then the multifidi are these little tiny muscles that surround the joints of the spine. They're actually your stabilizer muscles. But what we're finding is that they have about 10 times more proprioceptors than they actually do muscle fibers. So they're really a proprioceptor. They're an input to the nervous system. They're not necessarily actually a muscle at all. And so those all feed the brain with information so the brain can keep you balanced and upright and keep your autonomics functioning the way that they should. And so when we stimulate the joints of the spine with these vibrations from the arthrostim, what we're doing is stimulating the part of the brain responsible for those skills involved with success that we talked about earlier. And allowing someone's sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous systems become much more balanced and in line. And it all has to be done in a specific order based on what's needed with that person at the time. And I think that's where we get results when other places can't.
Yeah. And is that something you would use on like the babies too?
Sometimes,
is it like gentle enough?
Yeah, it's gentle enough to use on babies for sure. Generally speaking, I'm really not using the arthro-stem on kids under 4 months. Okay. Mostly it's just my hands. And so if you want to get an idea of what the pressure is, if you've ever checked to see if a tomato was ripe by pushing into it and getting a little dent in it, that's about all the pressure that I'm using with a young little infant. And so anyone, I mean, you can use it with them. There's no issue, but I choose to just use my hands with the little ones.
Right.
So
makes sense. Very gentle.
Yeah.
All right. So it seems like you pretty much adjusted everyone from 10 days old to who's the oldest you've adjusted?
I think 87 is the oldest.
Wow. Awesome. Is there anybody who shouldn't get adjusted?
Oh man, it's a tough question. I haven't met anyone yet. And I mean, we literally have clients right now with failed spinal fusions who have gotten results nowhere else but in our office and had relief from, obviously this is a pain conversation, with no one else in our office. And so this is the interesting thing is like, if you think that you don't need to see a chiropractor because you don't have issues, I can tell you're missing one of the secrets that people who are super elite are using. And I see it every single day in our office. People looking for certain things that they're not getting and they can't find anywhere else. Like there's no supplement that can help your nervous system function better. There's no diet that can hack your nervous system the way that having properly moving joints of the spine can. And there's more research coming out every single day on the way these adjustments stimulate the prefrontal cortex. And, no, I don't think there's anyone. Obviously, there are going to be certain cases where certain things shouldn't be done with people, but I think everybody can benefit from chiropractic care, spinal adjustments, having a healthy nervous system from day one through last breath of life.
Wow. All right. So that's like you might think that you're healthy, but you don't really know what it's like to be actually healthy. Because if you've lived that way your whole life, like if you're eating the SAD diet, the standard American diet, and you think you feel fine, I'm telling you right now, there's a whole new world out there if you start eating properly. Is that like kind of the same thing? Like if you think everything's going well and then you get adjusted, there's like so much more that is available.
100%. And I've seen this with, we have some athletes in our gym who are under care with me who thought what I did was like, there's no way this could help me with anything. And they're performing in the gym at a level that they probably never have in their lives. Wow. And I see it all the time with business owners, with athletes, with students in school. We have a girl who's ran hurdles 3 times. She won her first track meet for practicing hurdles 3 times. And I'm like, how'd you win? Jeez. And she's like, I really don't know. I don't think the school is that good. And I'm like, no, it's because your body is so in line and so well adjusted that she could pick up that new skill quicker.
Wow.
Yeah.
So the guy I interviewed on the last podcast, my roommate Nader, gets adjusted right at the gym. So let's talk a little bit about what got you into CrossFit, because you said you started doing it before it was cool. So when was that?
All right, so I started CrossFit early in 2009. So at the time, I think CrossFit was developed in 2006. Is that right?
Well, it was developed before that, but the first CrossFit Games, I think, was in 2007. I think CrossFit.com might have been released in 2006. I don't know.
Maybe it was 2006.
Don't quote me on that. But
so I started CrossFit in 2009, and so I'm living in Indiana at the time, and literally to kind of give you an idea of what it looks like, there are no CrossFit gyms in the Midwest at this point. There are CrossFit that I knew of. It's like CrossFit Santa Cruz was the one. Yeah. And so CrossFit.com at the time was saying, make your own medicine balls. They had hacks on how to and so seriously, up until I moved to California, I had basketballs filled with sand that was weighed out on a scale. Okay. So I had made my own medicine balls, make your own kettlebells. I remember when I first started, I was using steel plates and a crappy chrome bar that I had broken and makeshift taped back together to practice my snatches with steel plates. So you know how like insane that sounds now. You would
ghetto.
never do that.
Jeez.
What else did I make on my own? I mean, yeah, I had a friend who was a welder who made a pull-up bar. Like Rogue wasn't around back then to make a pull-up bar. And it was you look at the CrossFit.com website, and then they had a bunch of things where they had a forum where you could go and look at. So if you were RX, you could be RX athlete. If you were what they would call the porch or the pack, then you could perform at a lower level. So they basically had scaled movements for you. And that's what I followed for the longest time, until CrossFit Invictus kind of got popular and CJ Martin put programming online. And then that's when it kind of started to gain traction.
He's a smart guy.
Yeah.
So why CrossFit quickly? Like why that over, at that time, everybody was doing the traditional bodybuilding, like hypertrophy training.
Yeah, so I had been doing that, but then I was supplementing. I at some point, I don't know why I did it, but I was doing bro workouts, right? So chest and tries, back and bis, regularly squats, and at some point I decided I need to start getting out of breath, and I hated running, so I started doing jumping rope in between sets. So I was constantly keeping my heart rate up, and then that led me into, after my bro sessions, I would do like box jumps or just plyo training on my own and get my heart rate up. And someone's like, hey man, if you're doing these workouts, check out CrossFit.com. And so for me, what I fell in love with were actually the Olympic lifts and technique. And really where I'd never seen anything, and learned a ton about how to squat, how to deadlift properly, how to hip hinge, how to have these proper movement patterns. I realized that all the machines that I was using were crappy and actually wrecking my body. And that's where I got obsessed with CrossFit and form and technique. And I think that it's been a saving grace for me, because still I think people look and they're like, oh, your form's actually pretty good. And I was self-taught because there were no coaches back then. So
that's good that you focus on form, because CrossFit sometimes gets a bad rap because of injuries. But if you do everything correctly, the chances of injuries are pretty low. So if you're looking to start CrossFit, make sure you either do it out of box, like an actual CrossFit gym, get a good coach, or you actually like research videos online for proper technique, because people who have never done Olympic lifting have no business trying to snatch any weight until they master a PVC pipe. So I've seen your overhead squat, and it is phenomenal. Doing it on the wall, I'm envious. So yeah, years of practice.
I would add too, like because CrossFit is not dangerous, take your ego out of it, man. Like part of the captain's lifestyle, right, is like doing things that suck and doing them extraordinarily well. And so, whether it's like taking a cold shower every morning, it's the same thing as like that takes a lot of willpower. It's not sexy to be in the gym every day, twice a day, or, once at the beginning of your workout, once at the end of the workout doing squat therapy. But those are the things that I guarantee you will keep you from getting injured, and you will kick everybody else's butt. So like it has nothing to do, it's not CrossFit that's dangerous. It's your ego that's actually really dangerous. So
that's so true. Leave your ego at the door. Let go my ego. So we could go down a lot of different rabbit holes, but I think we should probably wrap it up a little bit. So let's see, what are you most excited about right now?
Right now I'm most excited about a couple of things. So actually, just the more I learn about the brain and the prefrontal cortex and all the magic that it does, the more it's just so obvious to me that what I get to do per profession can literally change the world. And I know people sit back and they think that chiropractors are quacks, and I see this all the time, which is all good, man. But belief, Tony Robbins says this, is belief is a poor excuse for an experience. And anybody who's been in our office, I think, knows that, it's like I believed one thing to be true about this, and it's totally different than what it is. So just mostly excited about learning more about the brain. And then on the side, man, I've been learning like a bunch of marketing stuff, which I'm super excited about. So on the entrepreneurial end of it as well. So yeah.
On that note, you want to tell people where to find you, where they can learn more?
Absolutely. So depending on what you're looking for, if you want to know what I do or who we serve, you can go to our website. It's www.nexusfamilychiropractic.com. If you're interested in some of the research, I've actually put a bunch of research online recently on our YouTube video, on our YouTube channel, which is just YouTube Nexus Family Chiropractic. It's there. It's like a 45-minute. I jump into all the research on helping everything from people with pain to people who are pregnant, to athletes, to kids with ADD and ADHD or other learning disabilities, and just the common person and why everybody should get adjusted, but from a very research perspective. So if you're skeptical that there's no science out about it, I would encourage you to watch that video. It's 45 minutes. It will probably change every belief that you ever have about what I do. We also have Instagram and Facebook, and those are Nexus Family Chiropractic as well.
Sweet. All right. Well, I think we'll wrap it up there. So thanks for being on the show.
Thank you, man. Appreciate it.
And don't forget, if you care about what I'm doing, you should probably not. You should probably go follow him instead. But check out thecaptainslifestyle.com or follow me on Instagram at 6CaptainMorgan9. And don't forget, live the captain's lifestyle. Peace.
Oh, yeah.